I would love to introduce Dr. Kim Schonert Reichl. She is a researcher, professor from the University of British Columbia, and a world expert on social and emotional learning. She has been helping all of us understand the scientific explanations on why each one of our stories had such a powerful impact in our lives. I now invite Dr. Kim to share her thoughts and reflections on what she has heard here today.
So it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Your Holiness, and to share with you some of the scientific evidence about these stories you've heard. You know, what we know now from science is that when you educate the heart, students don't only learn to be kind and compassionate, it also increases their school achievement. They get better grades, they do better in school. And what you've heard today is these stories about adolescence. And I want to just give you a little bit about teenagers. It's a very stressful time period. There's a lot of changes that occur. There's a stress pileup in terms of changes in school, the community, peer groups, and even changes in the brain that can affect them. And it's also a time of malleability of the brain. The brain is plastic, you know, and so you're able to learn a lot. So although adolescence is a time of increased vulnerability and problems to occur, it also is a time of a window of opportunity in which we can really create programs for adolescents. And what you heard today are different stories of what these adolescents learned. And rarely do adolescents actually learn the science. The teenagers don't learn the science behind what they do. But here they are. Actually, in British Columbia, we're making an effort to help the students learn the science. So I'm going to talk about three different things. First, I'm going to talk about relationships. And what we know from science is that supportive relationships play such a critical role in buffering stress. That when, and how, right, and there's a quote I'd like to use by John Bowlby, who studied early attachment theories, who said, "Human beings are happiest and able to deploy their talents to best ability when they experience trusted others as standing behind them." And the notion that adolescents can not just turn to their families, but to teachers. And what we now know from the research, and in fact a recent study we did here right in Vancouver of about 3,000 young people, is that the most important relationship for them in predicting their optimism, their well-being, their self-concept was not just relationships at home or in the community, it was supportive relationships with teachers that played such a critical role. And I think you heard today from the stories of those roles of teachers that played. We also know from science, and you already said this, I'm going to say it again, is that when you help others, when you are kind, it increases your happiness. You become happier yourself. And actually, what we know now from science is that when you're happier, when you have more positive mood, you actually learn more. You do better in school, you're open, you're more creative as well. So kindness is something that we could promote in schools and students learning about the science of kindness. And the last piece I want to mention is about volunteering. A lot of schools have opportunities for students to volunteer. And we did one research study here in Vancouver looking at students who were 15 years of age. And we wanted to know if those students who volunteered and worked with younger children, if it would actually improve their health. So we looked at things like cholesterol, and something called IL-6, which is how you process your immune functioning, as well as body mass index. And we found that those students, this was through a randomized scientific study, half of the students volunteered once a week for 10 weeks, an hour and a half a day, just for once a week, for 10 weeks. And we found that those students who volunteered, it reduced their cardiovascular risk. They actually... So they improve their health, which brings educating the heart to a whole new description, basically. So, and we found that those students, by doing that, working just once a week for an hour and a half, that they actually, those who developed the most in empathy, had the best effects on their heart health. So these are some things that we're doing here in BC, and bringing in the science to actually be able to change the minds of maybe some school officials and other people about the importance of this. But I also want to have you look at all these young people now here, and these young people on the panel, and all of those out there, is that we have tremendous potential here. And it's really up to the adults to help unlock that by providing the experiences and opportunities for these young people. Often adolescents are sort of portrayed as being egocentric and selfish and problems, but I think what you see here is that we have such an opportunity that we could change that framing of students to be ones who could be kind and compassionate and caring.
Wonderful, very wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for your insight into our stories and for helping us understand the science of educating the heart. Your Holiness, do you have any final words that you would like to say?
So, as I briefly already mentioned, world facing some kind of moral crisis. That not basic human nature is something negative. No. Aggressiveness, also part of human nature, because of this intelligence. Although desire or attachment, animal, we human being, same, but because of this intelligence, you see, our desire sometimes, you see, increasing, and use our intelligence. So different method. So that is aggressiveness. However, as you mentioned, also you see some sort of scientist, as I mentioned briefly, you see, they, through their scientific way of experiment or research, basic human nature is more compassionate. You see, they, Richard Davidson, one time, you see, he showed some sort of picture, you see, that the cartoon sort of
showed video images of a cartoon.
You see, the two young sort of person, or children. One picture shows helping, affectionate. One little sort of create obstacle to other. Hindrance. So then show very young children, age 4, 5, very young.
6 months old.
Or 6 months old. So the reaction, such young, very, very young sort of child, when they see helping, more compassion, they feel happy. Hindrance, dislike. So we can conclude basic human nature is more compassionate. Then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, consider anger very bad for our health. Compassionate mind, very good for our health. So that good health. So because I think the way we born, that way. So biologically, we are more, compassion goes very well with our body. Fear, anger, these are so same
Although they belong to the same part of human nature,
emotion,
same family of the emotions.
anger, fear, distrust, hatred, irritation, all these is the same. And also is extreme self-centered attitude and short-sightedness. It's the same sort of group, same family. So these are very harmful. So now, in school, you see, we teach the hygiene of physical. So now, why not? Hygiene of emotion, hygiene of mind must include. Then that also. Now here, I want to share. In India, 1,000 years, the secular concept of secular. According Indian understanding about secular means respect all religions, including non-believer. That is something very unique and something very relevant in today's world. In the West, some of my friends said they have the view secular is a little bit distance or disrespect religion.
Negative towards religion.
Negative. And sometimes you see they mixed atheism and secularism. It's totally not. Atheism, something like anti-God. Secularism, respect all religion. No differences about different philosophy. But all religions, theistic religion, non-theistic religion, according to the secular, respect all. So India, as a living example, so all world major religious tradition live together. And also, as I mentioned earlier, respect non-believer. So the necessity this kind of education to entire humanity. So the way to educate this also must be universally acceptable. If based on religion, then there's limitation. So the secular way is, I think, best way. Secular way to educate compassion. So I briefly mentioned at our meeting with boys and girls, elder one. So we need, like you see, for physical hygiene, education for hygiene, physical education of hygiene of emotion. We need the kind of map of emotion as a part of academic subject. Then, according individual student, or boys and girls, of course, when they meet, like you, see, the mother gives sort of maximum affection. The child get maximum happiness. My two parents, my mother always give me affection. So I much appreciate my mother. My father, short temper. So sometimes a few occasions like that. So at a very young age, my heart much closer to my mother, not father. So the children, immediately shows the appreciation of the positive emotion. So then explain this, as I mentioned, groups of the conservative.
From the family of emotions.
Anger, usually give other people little unhappiness. And the person himself, herself also is much disturbed in their mind when anger develops. So you see that anger, fear, distrust, these somehow interrelated. So then opposition, awareness, long-term because of the awareness, understanding about long-term interest, and then self-confidence, calm mind, compassion, affection, same group. I think you also mentioned the student received daily from teacher affection. Then their mind then fully open and more desire mixed with love to teacher, respect. So the lesson come from teacher go very deeply in my mind. If student come to this class with the feeling, oh, awful, their class doors awful slow in in
If the students turn up in the classroom with a sense of reluctance and unwillingness, it's very difficult to absorb the lesson.
The teacher may be very, very educated, great professor, but less showing smile, less showing sort of affection. And then student, now Monday I have to go to receive, you see, some special kind of blessing from that awful teacher. So I think all level, I think just, you see, after birth, from that time till death, affection is the main factor give person so inner peace or happiness. So firstly, I think, and then again, I think the Kasachuti. Once you see, get the sort of awareness about the map of emotion, that provide them clear picture, the value or harmfulness about these different emotions. Then also, you see, the relevant other emotions. So in order to prevent anger, you must prevent irritation, like that. In order to develop compassion, equality, entire human being want happiness, do not want suffering. And a social animal, my future depends on them. So, you see, then those who say awareness, the
So their own kind of internal relationships, you have to become aware of them.
Like hygiene or physical, you see, you need a lot of explanation. Similarly, the hygiene of emotion, also you see, we need a lot of explanation. Now here, I think ancient Indian psychology, really very, very helpful, really helpful. A lot of explanation about psychology. So including Buddhist psychology, a lot of explanation. So these are very, very useful. And also take as an academic subject. And very much related with moral education, education of heart. So that also, you see, can be the academic subject. So
that can be treated as an academic subject, yeah.
So I think the ancient Indian psychology very rich. So I think from kindergarten, because we can
We can expand it and elaborate on them, yeah.
I think we can teach, we can carry education about heart from kindergarten up to university level. More detailed explanation, more detailed, wider explanation like that. So here you already implement these things. So I really feel gratitude. Thank you. My job is just blah, 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 blah. You see, you implement. So wonderful. Thank you.